All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something many of us have heard of, but maybe don't really get: hospice care. There's so many misconceptions floating around, so our goal today is to cut through the noise and get some clarity. Let's dive in. So, what even is hospice? Well, at its heart, it's a special kind of care program. But the most important words here are quality of life. The whole idea isn't about giving up. Not at all. It's about shifting the goal to making life as comfortable and meaningful as possible by aggressively managing pain and other symptoms. Okay, that definition is great, but it's a little abstract, right? The real question is, what does this support actually look and feel like for a real person, a real family on a day-to-day basis? To get at that, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at how hospice goes way beyond just medical stuff. Then, we'll introduce the team that makes it all happen and meet the key players. After that, we'll switch gears and see how one of these roles is actually studied by researchers. And we'll finish up by asking what this all means for patients. First up, going beyond medical needs. You see, the whole philosophy of hospice is about treating the entire person. And that means recognizing that pain isn't just a physical thing. And this is exactly what we mean. Hospice tries to manage all these different types of pain. Of course, you have the physical pain, but there's also the emotional pain that hits everyone. There's the social pain of feeling cut off. They're the big spiritual or existential questions that pop up. And yep, even financial pain, the stress that comes with a long illness. It's the whole package.
So you might be wondering, how on earth do you tackle all of that at once? It seems impossible. Well, you're right. No single person could do it. The answer is to build an entire support system from the ground up.
And that solution is what's called an interdisciplinary team. Just think of it like a personal support crew, a team of experts built specifically around the patient and their family. They're all talking to each other, all working together to create this seamless layer of care that can address all those different kinds of pain we just talked about. All right, now for the fun part. Let's do a quick roll call and meet the all-stars who make up this team. First, you've got the nurse. They're kind of the clinical point person. They're the one assessing symptoms, doing things like wound care, talking to the doctors, and this is so important, teaching the family how to manage care themselves. Then you have the hospice care aide. They provide that absolutely critical, hands-on personal care. Things like bathing, helping someone move, the stuff that ensures a person's comfort and dignity every single day. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? This is the guiding principle for the entire team. It's not about fighting a disease anymore. It's about caring for the complete person who is experiencing that illness. Next up, the social worker. They are the ultimate logistical and emotional navigators. They help connect families with community resources and deal with all the tough but crucial planning, like finances and advance directives. And the team is even bigger than that. The patient's own doctor is still in the loop. There are nurse practitioners, a pharmacist managing all the medications, amazing volunteers who provide companionship, and a chaplain for spiritual support. So, speaking of the chaplain, let's make a little pivot here. We've seen what this team does in practice. But how do we know it actually works? Let's zoom in on just one of those roles, spiritual care, and see what the research says. So on one side, you have the everyday practice. A hospice chaplain offers spiritual support. We know this happens. But on the other side, you have the researchers asking, okay, that's great, but what does the evidence say? What do we really know scientifically about how this works and who it helps? To try and answer that, a group of researchers did what's called a systematic review. Their mission was basically to find, assess, and pull together every single scientific study that's ever been published on this topic. And this was no small task. I mean, look at this process. They combed through 6 massive academic databases. They screened thousands of articles, first by title, then the summary, then the full text. They had super strict rules about what got tossed out. And for everything that was left, they rated its quality. It was a huge effort. So after all that incredibly detailed work, how many studies did they find? Just 22. That's it. That number by itself is a huge finding. It tells us that for a practice that's so common, the actual scientific research behind it is, well, it's surprisingly thin. And this brings us right to our last section, because when you analyze those 22 small studies, you start to see some really big, surprising gaps in what we know. Here are the main problems the review found. The studies were all pretty small. That means the findings might offer some useful insights, but you can't really generalize them to everybody. Most of the studies also just relied on what people said they did, not what they were observed doing. And then there were 2 even bigger problems that stood out. The first is a massive geographic bias. As you can clearly see here, almost all the research comes out of the USA and Canada. We know very little about how spiritual care works in other cultures and other parts of the world.
But this, right here, this might be the most important finding of all. Whose voice are we actually hearing in this research? Overwhelmingly, we are studying the perspective of the professional caregivers. Out of 22 studies, only 5, just 5, bothered to include the perspective of the patients themselves. We're studying a service without consistently asking the people receiving it what they think.
And the researchers say it themselves, plain as day. This is a huge limitation, and it means that future studies absolutely must start exploring what patients think. In other words, the science is missing the voice of the person at the very center of it all. And that leaves us with one final, really powerful question. If the entire philosophy of hospice is to treat the whole person, not the illness, then shouldn't the very first step in understanding that care be to actually ask the person what it means to them?